All right, we're live. Giant Size Spectacular, episode number 3.
Hello,
we are
everybody.
here.
Hey.
All right.
And our topic of the hour, it's about the books that we took a pass on when they first came out, but subsequently grabbed onto and realized that they were pretty good. I'm sure we all have some of those stories like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's most of the books that that I have. I always felt like late to the game. Like I'm never the first one to get into the series. Like I'm never hip to like the new thing. I'm using words like hip to talk about being into comics. So yeah, like
yeah.
We're
all dads, so we're using words like hip.
Like all I get is, David's telling me, he's like, oh, you never read this? You got to read this one, and like he'll turn me on to some book. I'm like, oh, okay, that was pretty amazing. So I think a lot of books are like that.
There's a lot of stuff like that. I was just telling John Wales below earlier that because I just moved, I can't find some of my books. Yeah. So I'm freaking out because I'm like, where's this book? And then the next action is not to look for the book. I go on Amazon and see if I can find it.
There you go.
The fun part is going on eBay, finding it for like super cheap, and then getting like 2 copies of it because you found some deal. And then next thing you know, you have 3 copies show up from eBay, and then you find the copy that you have, and then you have like 4 copies. And that's that blue Superman that I was talking about, like 2 weeks ago. That's exactly what happened. Where I was like, oh hey, someone's selling this on eBay for $3. That's a great deal. I'm gonna buy that. Someone's selling 10 of these.
It's funny because after all the last few weeks, I've got like a list of recommendations that I'm starting to look for. I'm like rebuilding my collection. When I'd let a lot of it go. Now I'm like, I need to go pick that up again.
What
happened to this? So
I'm there, but I'm also in a place where I need to start getting trades of some of my old stuff, because the old stuff is like, it's so just like, it's like papyrus now.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that like when I would look through my dad's old comics, which were probably from like the 60s or something like that, not too old, and thinking just how brittle and old they were. I'm thinking, these will never happen in my comics. But
you're like
right. Like
paper's yellow. You're like, what's going on?
I've pulled some out lately that have gotten a little brittle. I'm like, oh, it's a good thing I got 4
It's funny
more.
because me and Wales just had like 2 big moves where I had to move all my stuff out of my storage, and then we had to move everything out of the studio. So, and me and Wales have been notorious for sharing libraries. So I'm missing a couple books. I'm missing like some key books. And I'm like, I was asking earlier. I'm like, I think you might have some of my stuff, because I found some of your stuff over here. So
nice.
So like, it worked.
I haven't worked my way through like 90% of the boxes that I've got, and all my studio stuff is totally in boxes. So you ask, and I go, I have no idea. I'm like, I'll look for it eventually.
Well, I want to say thanks to Hex Allen and General Piggy for joining us. Appreciate you guys being here. Man, I'll tell you, I had a long box, and I had this little dog, and man, the dog peed on my long box, bro.
I knew that was coming. The second I heard long box and dog, I was like,
man, I was like, I so wanted to punt that dog.
Oh,
it was like a little silky terrier. I love that dog, but was the meanest dog. That dog was my heart. But like, you want to talk about owning a dog that was mean? My dog Tiger, that was a mean-spirited little dog, man. I mean, he bite my friends. He tried to attack big dogs. I mean, but he was comedy too, though, because our neighbor had like a pit bull, and he was always trying to hump our neighbor's dog. And she would just stand there, and he could only get up on her leg. And he's convinced he's doing work. He's just like she's just kind of like, really?
That must be a terrier thing, because I had a mixed poodle terrier when I was a kid, and that dog could never stay calm, bit people, mostly us, wouldn't stop barking. My brother had moved back in from college, and the dog never liked him. He'd freak out screaming, barking, and like my brother just walk into the house. It was a little dog thing.
Yeah, Napoleon dog.
Yeah.
So who wants to get us going? Who wants to be the one to first share something that they passed on initially, but then they subsequently came back to and were like, man, this is good stuff.
I can start. I've got one that definitely. It was funny because in the 90s, late 90s or early 2000s, it was a thing where I was so deep into superhero books that like a lot of the other stuff I would try and then I'd walk away from. And one of those things that everybody was like going crazy for at Comics Factory, and I think I read the first couple of issues, but I let it slide, and then I had to come back to it, and that was Stray
Bullets.
And it was one of those things that there was so much good stuff, and it got to the point where it was embarrassing when someone would mention something and they show a picture, this monster, and then I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. And it got to that point where I was like, I got to catch up, and it went on, and it kind of came in at the transition when I was going to college and I didn't have the time or the money to read, and so I've come back to it much later, but I just had enough to get the bug again, realizing I loved those first issues once I got into them, and then having to take a break was tough to like come back and go.
The first issue of that book was really incredible. If anybody out there who hasn't read or even heard of Stray Bullet, it's worth checking out. It's a very good book if you like crime books. And it was funny. Remember when we would go to shows, if you could walk up to Latham and you could ask him, he'd ask you what character you wanted, and he would draw you because he had all these characters in the book. He had all these great characters, and yeah, he was really cool. Stray Bullets that's a great book. That's a great pick.
That was one series that I was on because just like you, but I succumbed to the peer pressure. Like they'd be talking about it, and I'm like, man, it's like I'm the kid that's kind of standing on the outside, So no, but it was a great crime noir, series, great black and white book.
Yeah. Great intermixing of lots of characters, lots of different stories, and how he weaved all that together at various points. It was like, in a lot of ways, it was like, where is this going? And you're not sure, but you can't stop reading. You can't wait to find out where it is. And so, I was also not a Valiant guy. I didn't read Valiant when it came out, and I didn't read it. And so I didn't really know who David Lapham was, and other people had, said, oh no, he's great. And I went through, it was right at that period when I was letting a lot of superhero stuff, like traditional superhero stuff, go. And I think I was, still a little bit stuck on the Image style of comics and all those. I mean, those artists are great, but there was, as I progressed as an artist, David Lapham's pencils and his inks, his work resonates with me so much more. Especially now, I'm at a point where that super Image superhero stuff, I'm like, it was never the style that I could draw in, and so it's like I look at that now and go, I should never have been chasing that. It's like a guy who can just draw some really great images and simple down to earth kind of just characters, and it's just beautiful work.
Yeah, good call on that one.
Nice.
So do we want to go around with it?
Pass the baton. You good, Peter?
Oh, so I'm sorry. That's me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So This was a toss up between two, but I feel like we talked about Kingdom Come. And Kingdom Come is definitely it's that one where, like so many other books, Watchmen, where you just hear people talk about it constantly, and it's just sort of that. It's that book that I feel like everyone has to have read at some point, and I think because of that, you get a lot of people who are like, I don't need to read that, or it's maybe, I don't know, not relevant anymore. This one, I did pick this up fairly early, but even when I did get to it, I felt that I was coming in late to the game. People were already talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, Wizard had already had several issues completely analyzing every, panel and getting down to, all the little Easter eggs that were in it. And I was like, what is happening here? Did someone actually do an oil? Like, did someone really paint a comic? Like, how is this possible? And I think I might be in the minority here, but I'm mostly a story guy. I don't read comics too much for the art. But this one, you just cannot deny how incredibly spectacular and amazing Alex Ross's art is in this. It is an absolute work of art. Yeah. And the story, as far as I'm concerned, it's the way the DC universe ends. It's the end of Superman.
There you go.
It's the end of Batman. It answers the question of Captain Marvel and who's stronger. I mean, it does it all so perfectly that even now it's kind of hard to, or it was even hard to go back and read comics then, thinking, well, I know how it all ends. I know what the future looks like, which is of course not the case. I mean, it's an Elseworlds book. It's not canon. Is it an
Elseworlds book now, or was it Elseworlds when it came out?
Did Elseworlds exist back then?
I feel like Elseworlds has been around for a while. That's a good question. I'm just looking at the trade and I'm seeing that on there, but
Yeah, because I always, because when DC will do something, then they'll go, it's an Elseworlds now, and you're like,
well, it wasn't mainstream then, or at least it wasn't part of any series. So I think Elseworlds was still.
Yeah. But, I think you're right. I think it was in Elseworlds.
Yeah.
Either way, though, it just
it's a good one,
and there's definitely parts that absolutely move me and have probably brought me to tears. The part with Martian Manhunter, where Bruce Wayne, I don't know if you guys I've read it quite a few times, but the part where Bruce Wayne is talking to Martian Manhunter and it's clear that Martian Manhunter has just completely lost his mind.
He's gone. Yeah.
And Bruce just tells him to go home, and it's
the subtle way they show
really
the subtle way they do the thing where they show it's Martian Manhunter.
He lifts up the
that was cool.
Yeah, it's really good. It's amazing, and I think it does. I was worried going into it that it was going to take a lot more understanding of the characters in the universe than I really had. I mean, they make references to stuff that I admit I don't know, or I didn't get that reference. But if anything, you come away feeling more connected, I think, and feeling more confident going back and saying, you know what, I'm going to pick up that Metal Man or something and see what the hell.
They drop little nuggets and they make you interested in seeing other things, other parts of the DC universe, because I was much more, obviously, a lot of us, I can speak for all of us, we were much more interested in what Marvel was doing. And for the most part, I definitely came in later on DC, so there was so much more I wasn't aware of, but then I'd become more interested in it because I was like, well, who's this guy,
And with Kingdom Come, also
the way to answer the chat.
Yeah, I think it was written well enough, because I was like you, Peter. I didn't read very much DC, but it was written well enough that the story kept moving, and it didn't, it didn't make me feel like I got to stop and look something up. It was written in a way that it just felt like you were part of the flow, which I still come back to that kind of love of earlier comics, where, I mean, the editor's note that would say see, issue 93, and you're like, I gotta go back and look for that. But usually I would keep going anyways. You kind of just, there's a little bit of that going for the ride, and and figuring I'll catch up as I go. And if it's important, they'll get me up to speed. And so a lot of times, that still for me is one of those great things about jumping into a comic and just going, oh, I'm gonna figure this out as I go.
Yeah. I was trying to find that Martian Manhunter panel, but it'll take me a minute, so I'm sorry. To
answer the question, it looks like Google said 1989 was when they trademarked Elseworlds as a name.
Oh, okay. So they've been doing it
they may have been already putting it on there.
Wow.
Yeah.
David.
So I mean, ultimately, I thoroughly enjoyed. I know for Tank thought it was decent. I thoroughly enjoyed Kingdom Come. I think I didn't articulate it as well as you, Peter, but it really would have been. It's the perfect ending to the DC universe. You're right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a couple of books that have done that we also talk about with Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow with Alan Moore, his last Superman, sort of the end of Superman, and the other comic that I almost was going to pick, or the series I was going to pick, was Peter David's Incredible Hulk, and what turned me on to that was the very last issue that he written. I think it was Dennis at the shop was like, it had come out like a while ago, and people were talking about it. I said, I have no interest in the Hulk, but they knew that I was a Peter David fan. He said, you got to read just read his last issue of it. Picked up the last issue. It completely blew me away, and then I went back and backtracked on the Incredible Hulk. So I think that's Incredible Hulk 467.
Okay.
Worth
nice.
It.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I was reading a big portion of the Peter David Hulk stuff, and don't know if I got to the end of it. So now I have
that is one of the things I do remember reading. I mean, I didn't read his run, but I had a friend of mine say, you got to check this out, and he just put it in front of me, and it's like the end. It's like Rick Jones is old, everyone's old, and
Rick. The story is Rick Jones in a chair, and he's being interviewed by Peter Parker from the Daily Bugle. You don't see him, but it's clear that Peter's the one interviewing him, and he's telling the story about like the last time he saw the Hulk. Like it takes place. I think that issue is 10 years after the previous issue. So I mean, it
Gotcha.
Oh no, this is something different though. This is that I've read. It was something way different then.
Really?
Yeah. There was something else that Peter David had done with the Hulk way in the future.
Huh.
Yeah, and then like Rick Jones is like an elderly old man at this point.
Like older? Oh.
He's way older. Because I don't want to ruin it, but
sure, yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Like I don't want to ruin it.
The current Hulk goes to the future. No, that's not it.
No, okay.
The old Hulk goes to the future, and he meets himself in the future, and he's vastly different. He turns out way different. So you want to read that. It's like it's Peter David.
That's Peter David.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, but
I did not know.
Yeah, what was it called? Let me find. But keep going. I'm sorry. I'll try to find out what it's called.
That's good stuff, man.
John, what about you? You got a sleeper?
So this isn't really a sleeper, but I was just late to the game on it, and I had a lot of fun collecting it after the fact. It was the Byrne run of Fantastic Four, because this whole run, and I got literally this whole stack here. Like I'm actually going to bring the whole darn stack onto the, I mean, this run was I was a Byrne fan, but this was a run that Byrne did primarily in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And it was a long run. I loved it because the storytelling was, it's the way that I think it's the way that Claremont showed us how a teen book should be run. So it's like, he'd do a Johnny Storm story and kind of, it would be a story about, he's a very superficial looking guy on the outside, but you get to get a taste of who he really is. Kind of, there was a lot of kind of development of characters. So this is really where Invisible Girl went to become Invisible Woman, and it wasn't just a name change. Like you saw her throughout this series practicing and learning her powers and going from just being able to do simple things to realizing she had a whole vast array of things that she could do above and beyond what she was doing before. So she really leveled up in the book.
Wow.
She became one of Marvel's kind of like more powerful characters throughout the series. You really saw a lot of the interplay. Go ahead.
There was remember they had a kid too. They really developed what Franklin Richards was going to become.
Right.
Yes.
And whenever I'll save this for last, but then they brought in Frankie Ray, and they had the storyline of maybe Frankie Ray would become the 5th member of Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before in the first podcast, that resolution, that storyline is really good. And then the Thing leaves, She-Hulk becomes part of the Fantastic Four, which is really cool. And and Byrne could draw the hell out of She-Hulk. I mean, that guy loved drawing She-Hulk. I mean, it was a lot of fun. That book was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And the funny thing is, like, you look at like the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I mean, like,
sorry, this is called Future Imperfect.
Future Imperfect. Okay, yeah, that I've read. I didn't read the other Peter David story that you were talking about, Peter. Sorry. But I got Future Imperfect.
Yeah, Peter, you want to read that? You want to read that?
All right,
Future Imperfect. You really want to read that?
All right.
Yeah. Then text me and say thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up right now on the app.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to find that for whoever hadn't seen it.
No, that's good. No, that is a good story arc. And I mean, just you want to talk about a well-written team book, because I think team books can be difficult to pull off. So he really did a good job of developing each character individually, like he did with the X-Men. He's really a master, kind of character development, moving the stories along and telling just really fun and intriguing stories along the way. So it's funny, like, this whole thing with, that Guardians of the Galaxy movie with Ego. He does a phenomenal Ego story. So, I mean, it's like, I think it was this story that really defined kind of that Ego character that you kind of see in the movies. So you see a lot of just his creativity. You see his love for the genre. He did like a 25th, I think it was like a 25th issue where, or 25 year, I think, anniversary issue where they got captured by Dr. Doom, and basically they get sent back, kind of in their mind, sent back to 1961. So it's like an homage to the first issue. I mean, it's like, this is a dude that loved the history. He loved Jack Kirby,
Yeah, really,
of course,
really like the Kirby stuff.
Yeah, and you have, kind of that Lee Kirby influence that he gives an homage to, but he doesn't bastardize it. And then he moves it forward.
He really liked the Kirby stuff, and he did, like, his Doctor Doom stories were so good. His Doctor Doom. He always did great Doctor Doom stories, and I mean, he did issues, and Byrne was he was literally bringing everybody in his Fantastic Four. I mean, remember they fought the Imperial Guard at one point.
Yep.
And it's like he had, I mean, whenever he brought in Galactus, I mean, he did. There's a story arc where Nick Fury goes back in time to kill.
Back in time. Yes.
And the Fantastic Four go back in time to stop him.
To stop him from killing Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some
of that, John. I've been turned on to that series before, but I gotta read some more.
Fantastic Four is just, it's a trip, because personally, whenever I saw what they were trying to do with the movies, I was like, I always thought you guys are overthinking this. Just have fun, you know. And it just seems like they're just overthinking every aspect of it. And it's like, no, they're just 4 people. They have powers and they go on adventures. That's it. But
and they really are. And that's what Byrne understood is like, yeah, they're heroes, but they're really adventurers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like Johnny Quest. You know what I mean? It's like Reed Richards is a scientist, and Ben Grimm is kind of the muscle.
Yeah.
And they just go on these crazy adventures, man. They're going into micro universes. They're going into, they're going all over the place.
Yeah. It's one thing. It's when Dave brought up Tom Strong last week.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking of Fantastic Four, and just like they basically took all of Fantastic Four, and melted it into Tom Strong, and
yeah. So,
I was going to say to David's point that is the funny thing about how simple the Fantastic Four can be if you just keep it in mind that they're adventurers. So they're going to go on adventures.
Exactly.
If you try to explain why they would go up into space, it really takes a lot out of the wind out of the sails, because then you have to get into come up with a reason, or you have to come up with some explanation rather than just go, they're adventurers. Especially coming from the 60s, this was the space race, and everyone everybody wanted to go into space. I mean, it was
I have a theory. I just have a theory. When you watch those old movies from the 60s, those sci-fi movies or just adventure movies, Jack Kirby and Stanley were fans of those movies. So, and Lost in Space, remember you watching Lost in Space, and they're just they go on this adventure.
That's it.
And they're not explaining too much. I mean, they didn't have the effects to do the monsters, so monster's invisible, and you just the monster's invisible, but when they show the footprints, you're like, those movies, all that stuff, those guys were fans of stuff, and they just, they kept it simple, kept it a lot of fun, so
I think I'll, not to go in the other direction with it, but I think a lot of what maybe some of the more modern stories suffer from is they explain way too much.
Yeah.
And they do way too much. You know what I mean? It's like, who would ever think of explaining the Force in terms of metachlorians in science? I mean, it's a spiritual force. So why would you even go there?
Well, there's an interesting story I heard a couple of weeks ago that Luke's there interviewing Mark Hamill about Star Wars, about the first time you see Darth Vader, and he suggested to Lucas that when Vader comes out, someone should say, "Hey, there's Darth Vader, Darth Lord of the Sith," and list all his accomplishments. And Lucas said, "No, he's going to come out and we'll drop some music in, and everybody will know who he is."
Exactly.
And maybe it's effective because I've only seen the movie a million times, but it seems really effective. I mean, I was just watching it today. Well,
I mean, as a kid, even seeing it in the theater, I mean, when he showed up, you kind of clinched up a little bit. You're like, you know what I mean? It's like he didn't need a neon sign over him saying, "Hey, I'm the bad guy." You knew that, and I'm awesome.
Yeah. So Byrne on Fantastic Four, and he was. I mean, remember, we still got to talk. Eventually, we got to do a whole thing about Alpha Flight. He was doing Alpha Flight at the same time he was doing Fantastic Four.
See, but that was the thing. So I never picked it up because Byrne was doing other runs while he was doing this. So I didn't even realize he was really doing Fantastic Four. The idea of Fantastic Four didn't really appeal to me because I knew I'm like, oh, those are just some dudes that are adventurers. I want to see the Avengers. I want to see Alpha Flight. I want to see the X-Men. I had no idea this dude was doing so many books at such a high level.
What's funny about the Fantastic Four and his run on it also is he took it as a personal mission that this is Marvel's flagship book. This is the best team book. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to make this the best team book. And as far as I'm concerned, he absolutely pulled it off, and because what is it? The title is The World's Greatest Comic Magazine. That's the title.
That's right.
Yeah, that's on the header, and yeah, definitely.
I've not sseen Sly Stallone's most recent.
No, not last superhero movie I saw. Comic book movie I saw with Stallone was it The Judge Dredd? And
Yeah.
I don't think I trust Stallone with a comic book.
Wait, no, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, you did.
He was in that. I did
Right,
see.
right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he was in that. I forgot.
Yeah, that,
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he was in that. Sorry.
We're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to do an episode, or talk one of these days just about the movies, and just get it out there and just have it out. What the hell's going on with some of the
Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep happy vibes, man.
I don't know. I mean, you mentioned She-Hulk, and
I know I have to watch She-Hulk. I have to watch when Daredevil shows up to see how that happens, because I don't have a choice. I have to, So
okay.
So
Hex is saying the most recent Slide movie isn't a complete train wreck.
Okay.
It's watchable. You know what? Nowadays,
I didn't know you did.
It's sad. Nowadays, you'll take watchable.
So what is the movie? Like, what did he do?
Yeah, what is it, Hex? What is it? I don't even know what the movie is.
Is it like?
Because all I know about Sylvester Stallone is he's in trouble now for wasting water in California. That's the headline I just read him in.
Is that right?
There was this whole big thing. They're talking about these people that are like they spend millions of gallons on their property, and they were given, I think, the Kardashians or something.
Yo, I gotta water my begonias.
Yeah, but Stallone, he uses this much. I was like, Stallone.
All right. You want me to go or?
Go for it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Dave.
Now I was gonna try American Flag. Right.
Ooh.
This is a book I slept on, and I ended up buying a lot of them and reading them. But I can't in good conscience confidently speak about this because I haven't read it in so long. I have to do a reread.
Gotcha.
But I wanted to say, hey, look, this is a great book, and a lot of people enjoy this. So great, American Flag, First Comics, Howard Chaykin, great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start with something I slept on for years. I always saw it in stores, but I was like, oh man, it's a chick book or whatever. But then George, actually from the Comics Factory, was like, you better check out Love and Rockets.
Oh, that's
some of this.
Yeah, there was a period where I was just reading everything and just trying out everything, and then this was a book that I ended up getting hooked on, just absolutely amazed by, and I mean the art in it is really, my first exposure to Love and Rockets was there's a documentary in the 80s that came out called Comic Book Confidential, and they interview all these different comic book creators. And what's really fun about it, if you're a comic book fan, is the comic book creators the camera goes by their panels, and the comic book creators would read the characters. Best one is Jack Kirby because he reads Captain America, but near the middle they get Jaime Hernandez, and he does some of his scenes for Love and Rockets. And I mean, look at this art, just beautiful art, and he draws these, the best thing about Jaime is he can draw superheroes, he could draw anything. But
I always preferred, I think, Jaime's art to, is it Gilbert?
Gilbert, yeah, and I always
preferred Jaime's art to Gilbert's. That's
usually how it goes. But I remember reading when I finally got to reading Gilbert's Palomar stuff. The stories were really, really good. I was actually really amazed by the stories that he had done. But Love and Rockets is something that I just pass. Yeah, I just didn't. I knew about it, but I didn't really. I was like, it's not superheroes or science fiction. But it's interesting because Jaime was doing the mechanic stories that are science fiction, but they weren't like, you know, it wasn't like obvious science fiction that I liked. But once I got older, I got really into it, and I think it's a great book. Jaime Hernandez, or the Los Brothers Hernandez. I definitely recommend Love and Rockets if you ever get a chance to read it. It's really great. Hopefully they never make a movie of any of this stuff.
I wasn't expecting that one for you, man. That's a surprise.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do something a little off, you know, my obvious wheelbase, because I do like a lot of stuff, but I want to try, you know, because it could always just be X-Men, Daredevil, X-Men, Silver Surfer. So I'm always trying to go, no.
Yeah, you definitely got me into that stuff, and yes, I do thank you, because those stories were another one where, you know, they're so off from superheroes that it took me, you know, a little while to get into it, but you know, yeah, they're great drama, great character development, and he does such a great job of progressing characters. Like, it's so clear that he's living with these characters, and so of course they don't just sit and he made, you know, one look, one, you know, story, one type. These characters are evolving, and their experiences affecting, you know their choices, and how they develop.
Yeah, the characters age, because I think a lot of the characters are in their 50s now. And one of the main characters, Maggie, because she was, you know, when she was a teenager, she was young and cute and thin. Over the course of the book, she got fat.
She expanded.
You know? She expanded, and in the book, just, you know, she's still this cute girl, but she gained weight, and it's really awesome, because you just think, who does that? Nobody really does that, not in comics, but you know, these guys did it here, and they created something really special. But like, yeah, definitely recommend anything Love and Rockets if you if you can get a hold of it. And as I said before, hopefully they never make a movie.
Yeah, that won't translate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny you were mentioning the mechanics, because those are essentially the same characters, right? And he just took those characters and then shifted out of a sci-fi setting into something that was much more,
more inner city, more down to earth, you know, because the mechanic stuff has flying saucers, robots, and dinosaurs. And then she goes back home to her city called Hoppers, and she's just, you know, she sometimes she works at a you know, she'll work at like a fast food place. You know, so like, and then you know, Jaime loves wrestling. Well, both the brothers love wrestling, so the books have tons of wrestling in it. You know, so
Whoa Nelly was one of my favorite little miniseries. Fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's got all the wrestling in it. You're like, hey man, this is great. You know,
like the old school wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. And see, and what's comics really if it's not wrestling? You know,
that's true. Yeah, the luchadors have to be like the original superheroes.
Yeah, because like I mean, yeah, we could go forever talking about wrestlers and comic book characters, you know, because Macho Man Randy Savage he's a comic book character, you know,
for sure.
That guy was a comic book character.
Yeah, you know? That's good stuff.
Yeah, so
Johnny, did you have another one, Johnny?
I sort of do, and it breaks a little bit of our topic, but it also connects pretty well. And for me, and being an art guy, I didn't get Jack Kirby. Like I said, I was so stuck on that Image and the late '80s kind of stuff. So when I went back and I got the Fantastic Four, the original, it was shocking how much Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were putting into these books. I mean, a single issue would turn into a run now, because
they're all over the universe in one issue.
They're all over the universe in panels. They're zipping across the galaxy. You know, and seconds later in the rocket ship, you know, they're.
I mean, it's just so there's just so much going on in these pages, and you know, I love big splash pages. I love big action scenes, but they could put 3 comics worth of writing and storytelling in one issue.
Yeah.
And it was what was so amazing for me watching this first run. It was clear they were like just like they're putting everything into a single issue. And at the time Marvel I think was just getting going, or they were basically trying to bring it back from the brink. And so each issue has so many great ideas and introducing a new villain every issue, and they were just going like full steam ahead. And so it was like, having come from like not really getting it or going, it's not for me. You read it and it's just such beautiful, thick, dense work that each issue is so much to get out of.
Yeah, I've been loving going back and reading any of the old Fantastic Four, any of the old Avengers stuff, any of that. Yeah, but the Fantastic Four especially, you go back and I talk to David about it all the time, just how much is happening in one page or in one panel. Like, yes, of course, people don't talk like that. They don't tell their whole master plot in one panel, but they also, people don't wear like green cloaks and, metal masks either. Like, it's totally, it's amazing the way that, they'll just get it all out in one panel. Whereas now there's this trend in comics that I really, really have a hard time with, and it keeps me from buying so many books, where it's just like 3-4 pages of like 4 heads talking and, turning and tilting and, doing this and that and the other as they're explaining something, as if I need to see it drawn out. I don't need to see 5 paragraphs drawn out. I can read 5 paragraphs. I just need to see one picture to represent it, but I don't need.
That's right.
Drives me absolutely nuts. And I go back and I look at that stuff and see just how much less is more. I love it.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys checked out? I think I mentioned it to David, but I'm going to butcher the name. Tom Scioli, his the grand design that he did for Fantastic Four. He did this. He's done a couple other things. It's this like homage that he did to sort of the original Fantastic Four, and the art's amazing. He definitely lifts a lot of the stuff from Kirby, but it's very. If you guys have not checked this one out yet, I really recommend this guy's Fantastic Four. And he even did a trade that I picked up of the GoBots. That was incredible.
What?
Okay, I just wanted a thumbs up on Hex Allen. He's absolutely right. His comment about them trying to make movie comics cinematic. Yeah, absolutely.
Hex's book is I backed it. It has elements that I love. It has Robotech. It's a sci-fi book, so it's influenced by Robotech, which I love. As he was saying, he's got American flag influences on that book. So I'm just giving a shout out to my man because he's a great creator and he knows how to get it done.
All right. Cool.
Nice.
All right. Who's up next?
Mine is it's pretty obvious kind of given what's going on today, but like I did not read Invincible.
Oh.
I have. Oh, sorry.
Go.
I was working at Image when that was like coming out, and that was the thing. I just found my Invincible #1, and that thing is going for like $1,500.
What? Oh.
I just found it. And I'm about ready. Like I had. It was. I need to get it graded. It was not stored the way it should have been stored, but it's in really nice condition. So I'm sorry.
I think I might have that one in a box somewhere too.
It's worth something right now. But that Invincible was good stuff, and
I have no individual issues of Invincible. I didn't collect Invincible at all.
I didn't either, and I have not watched the show. I didn't stick with the series. And what's funny about it is that Invincible came out when Image was trying to do a bunch of superhero books. So they did. That came out that month. It was Invincible. It was a book called Fire Breather. I think that's even when Noble Causes came out, or Noble Causes was just before. And there was a couple others. I found it as well. But they were trying to launch all these like, we're going to do classic superhero books, and Fire Breather was the one I really liked. It was like this half kid, half dragon. I was like, oh, this is great. I really like it. Invincible, whatever. All right. Yeah. I think I was jealous of Invincible because I had an idea I was working on something that I felt was kind of similar to it.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it. You know, you hate when that happens, and so I never read it. So
yeah. So, man, I've actually been pleasantly surprised.
Really?
I mean, I'll tell you what I enjoy about the book. I enjoy the character development. You can definitely tell that Robert Kirkman, and it's funny that you say that. I appreciate having you here as an Image guy because you feel like the book takes a turn. And probably takes a turn within, I don't know, maybe the first year, depending on how often the issues were coming out. So it's like you kind of have what seems like a pretty fun but run-of-the-mill superhero story.
Yeah, that's what I felt from the first issue, and now I see the show, and it's like it's all dark and gritty, and
well, the thing was they all of a sudden they make a turn. They use that, well overplayed, Watchmen, evil Superman, shtick. But
that was my idea.
But the thing is, you get the development of the character Mark, who is invincible, and they do it. It's almost like a teen book, because even though Invincible is the main character, you have development of a lot of these other characters like Eve, and I like how they're marching the kind of characters through their development. That part I like. Maybe I'm just old. I like the book is just like unnecessarily gory. Just unnecessarily gory. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I mean, some of it, I'm just like, okay, I get it. It's a bloody battle, but golly, it's like bones and ligaments. I mean, it's like, I feel like I'm reading a horror book, but like, that's just me. That's just my sensibilities on it. But in terms of like how well the story's written, how well the story's developing, I'm not all the way through because I'm catching up. I'm in the process of catching up. I'm in graphic novel number 4 right now, which is just like issues, 14 through 19. So I mean, I'm not even deep into this.
Now, have you watched the show and then you went back to pick up the book?
So I watched the show first, and then I went and I picked up the book. So definitely seeing kind of the differences between the pacing. The pacing of the show.
So far, or is it splitting?
It's the pacing is different. They do a few things a little bit differently. It's like I think the pacing of the show is faster, but the pacing of the comic is fine. I like the way the comic is paced. I think they're doing a good job. I think the show they just kind of got down to the nitty gritty. I mean, the whole thing with the dad and Mark. That's.
I don't know too much about it. I mean, I've picked.
I don't want to say too much then, but like, it's worth. I think they did a good job with the show. I have the same challenge I have with the books, the same challenge I have with the show. I'm like, I'm not averse to blood, in books, but it's like, man, I mean, the book is a bloodbath.
Yeah.
It really is.
I've been wanting to go back and pick up some issues of The Boys because I've been watching that on Amazon and have really been liking that. And people say that the comic's supposed to be pretty good as well, but I guess it's very divergent. Like it doesn't follow it at all. And I guess Walking Dead pretty much did the same thing as well.
I never watched the Walking Dead show, but that was actually a story that I read subsequently. I think Justin, I think he lent me a compendium. So this thing was like this thick.
Yeah.
It was like a black and white compendium. And there's still a lot of stories after that. So I just I just kind of dove into it and I was like, man, this is a well done horror comic. So I definitely give Kirkman props in being able to write different genres. But his Invincible has horror elements in it too. So maybe horror is really his thing. What about you, Dave?
All right. This one's funny because I got in. It's funny you mentioned the boys because Garth Ennis. Now I got into Garth Ennis had written one of the, to me, his crowning achievement of stories was he'd written an issue. He'd written a miniseries of the Unknown Soldier in the '90s that totally blew me away. And like all the preacher stuff and all the other stuff he did was I didn't really didn't really resonate with me. You know, I just kind of liked it okay, but not really. But when I read the Unknown Soldier, I was just floored by it. And then he came back and he wrote an two-issue miniseries of Enemy Ace. And I've always said that the only thing DC did better than Marvel was war comics. But then I had another friend correct me and say that they also did horror comics better. So I had to grab, because I had no idea that Jack Kirby had done a run on the Losers until I was
Wow.
I was going to cons and I was digging through long boxes, and I found a couple issues of the Losers, and I was like, what wait a minute, what? And like I have a couple of issues, but like because I started liking the war comics because I liked it started with Unknown Soldier, then Enemy Ace, Sergeant Rock, of course, and then I really dug the Losers because I love the idea. I love the idea that these guys are the losers, because in a way you go, they're called the Losers because in a way you go, that's the group I'd be in, part of the Losers. And like Jack Hervey does it. I think this would be in the 70s, I think, because he's not at Marvel anymore, and he's not at the height of that power anymore, that Marvel power. So he's but he's still a working stiff. He's still a working pencil. So he's doing what he can, and he gets on the Losers and he does a run, and he does this really great run. He's still producing great Kirby work, And I like John had said, I wasn't really appreciating Kirby until I got deeper into drawing. When I started doing comic sample pages, all of a sudden my eyes were open and I could see exactly what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And I had to literally just advance as an artist to see exactly what he was doing, just how efficiently he was able to get all this work done. You're like, whoa, now I can see that, because I do storyboards, so I can't be sitting there going, I'm going to draw everything. So, no, you don't have time for that. But the level of work Kirby was able to produce is insane. But there's that. So basically, I'm just going with the Losers. You get a chance, and it doesn't have to be the Kirby one. If you want to try some cool war comics, DC did great war comics, and this is one of my favorites.
Dude,
so that's.
There's something you said though I'm with you on DC doing better war comics than Marvel, but what horror comics did they do better than Marvel?
They had
Dracula, Son of Satan.
No, yeah, I'm just saying, they had like the House of Mystery. They had think about it. They had like.
I was trying to think of what other ones they did have. Like Swamp Thing was the only horror one I could think of.
That Swamp Thing run that Bernie Wrightson had done in the 70s. Because remember, last week Brian showed us a cover of Swamp Mean.
You're right.
Batman. Now, and a lot of, it's funny because I watched the first part of the Sandman show, and one of my beefs was like, in the comic, by the second issue, Sandman is like in the Justice League satellite tower, he's like there, and there's the Justice League. So I was like, man, I know they're not going to do that. So I was kind of had a chip on my shoulder watching the show.
I was going to say, wait, did they actually do that in the show?
I'm not going to do that in the show because it's just like, because even when they did that in the comic, the Sandman comic, they did that, and then they got as far away from superheroes as possible, So, but like that, I just think, why wouldn't he do that? That would be so cool, But they, But like, you know, Vertigo was doing a lot of horror comics.
Yeah.
And they were doing some pretty good horror comics, you know, like the Constantine stuff, the Hellblazer stuff was really great. You know, I shouldn't say better because, I mean, I got a hold of that Marvel Dracula, all that Gene Colan stuff.
Ooh.
That stuff. And Blade.
That was almost what I picked up.
Yeah, Blade.
Blade. So, okay, I take that back. Because Blade got a movie before everybody. Yeah. Yeah. So saying it right here, Wesley Snipes does not get enough credit for what he did for his contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He does not get enough credit. That's
you know,
and that opening scene is still the best opening scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like not to be believed. You were like, holy cow, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So that's my second pick.
That's a good second pick.
That was good.
Mel is dropping some science for us here. So he left out all DC characters and wanted to separate from the universe. Gaiman said that Joanna Constantine was swapped in because of that.
See, okay.
Oh, okay.
That is one of the things that I'm dreading, and that's because the guy, I can't remember the name of the guy that played Constantine on the show, but he was great. And like if he showed, the CW show, if he showed up here in this Sandman show, I would have just been like, whoa, that's great. But they didn't want to do that, and they went in it. That's like, you know, I don't make those decisions, but I make the decision to watch it.
Right. That's exactly.
You know? So I was just like,
with your eyeballs and your dollars.
Yeah, I was just like, so no, I totally agree with you, Hex Allen. I am right there with you.
Yeah, we gotta have Mel on one of these days.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be awesome.
Let's do it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're getting close to the hour mark. I don't know. Did any of you guys have anything else particular that you wanted to bless folks with?
I have one more.
Yes.
All right. I slept on this and I got it, and then I wanted to show it today, and it's the Darwin Cook Frontier. And this, you never read it?
No, what is that?
This is Darwin Cook doing like the beginning of the DC. He's doing the beginning of the DC universe, like after World War II. Actually, not even World War II. It's after the Korean War, so it's a cold.
I got that hardbound.
Huh?
With the hard case, bro.
Oh, so here's the thing.
That's not like the year one stuff that they did way back when, is it?
It's kind of like that. So,
okay.
You know, it's funny. I was just telling John that I bought part 1 and part 2. I was just telling John that I can't find part 2. Well, I was just telling you guys I couldn't find part 2 because I don't know where it is. So I was already on eBay looking for the absolute edition because I'm probably going to end up.
That's what I got. It's dope.
But like this thing starts. It literally starts with. It starts with my guys. It starts with the losers.
Oh wow.
It starts with the losers, and it ends. Their storyline ends with him with it ends with them. You know, I mean, that's how their storyline ends with them with the end of them, and they literally go out like losers, you know. And then it also has one of these really cool things that I noticed that it does is they show a scene where Superman's talking to he's talking to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's taller than Superman.
Yes.
Oh wow.
And Darwin Cook was one of these guys. He's gone now. He's a very special guy. Darwin Cook loved the characters so much, but he loved them in this way where he respected the characters. He didn't want to doodle with the characters. He didn't want to say, well, I don't like that part of the character, I'm changing that. He emphasized all of it because he loved it so much. And the closest I ever came, because I know guys, because he's an animation guy, and he came from animation. I think he's graphic design, then went to animation, then he came to comics, and he passed a couple years ago. I remember there were guys I know that work in animation that knew him personally. They're like, oh yeah, I know Darwin. And I'm like, wow, because he was one of the guys I was so impressed with because I just missed so much of the stuff he did. And when I came into it, I was like, holy cow, this guy's so good. The closest I ever came to meeting him, me and John were at the Long Beach Convention Store, and we had a table, and he walked past our table. And that was the closest I ever came, and he just walked on by, and I was like, wow, that's Darwin Cook. But Darwin Cook did great stuff. And I don't think that's just one of the things I can pick, but you can't go wrong with anything he did. He's so good. But that was me. I just had to add him at the end. Sorry.
Well, that is an awesome way for us to wrap up the broadcast. Man, this is good stuff. We appreciate those that joined us, Variety Content Entertainment, Hex Allen, Tank Ferret. Appreciate you guys hopping in the chat. I hope I didn't miss anybody. General Piggy. And until next week, we're out.
All right. See you guys later. Good talking again.